Hello and welcome to another Offseason Outlook episode of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin. How are you?
That's my dad. Dad, we are going to talk about the NL Central now, the 5 teams in the NL Central. Again, if this is your first episode joining us, we are doing the losses of these teams from the offseason, and then my dad's going to kind of give the needs, maybe point out a few trade targets or trade candidates, if you will. We'll do that for each team. We might spend 4 or 5 minutes a team. We'll see. We might really unpack a team like the Brewers, which is the shirt I have on right now because who knows what's going on in Milwaukee, or really kind of get into the Cubs as they are going to try to grow this offseason. They have the most plans.
But they've won the offseason so far, by the way.
It's been a short offseason, folks. I don't know if they've won. What have they done?
Council.
Oh, they stole it from the Brewers.
That's 8 games right there.
The Cardinals would argue they've won the offseason because they've signed 2 actual players and not coaches. So, Dad, they've lost. They had a really bad year. I don't remember a Cardinals team this bad.
Correct. Yeah. The Cardinals, tell me the last time they finished in last place.
I don't know. I can't.
In that division.
I can't.
That's all you need to know.
Adam Wainwright retired, although I argue that he should have done that last year.
Yeah, he did not look good this year. I think he was only throwing the 80s the whole year.
Obviously, they traded a lot of people at the deadline. I'm not counting them. But Dakota Hudson got non-tendered. Former outfield star Juan Yepes got non-tendered. Drew Verhagen's a free agent. And Andrew Nizer is a backup catcher. He's also a free agent. They openly said that they had goals to bring in 3 starting pitchers. They brought in Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Don't know if St. Louis fans believe they were the biggest check marks in the world. So there's 1 more starting pitcher, Dad. What else do they need?
I'm thinking they need some outfield help.
What? They have 7 outfielders.
But you were saying that they're going to trade for depth.
They trade from their depth.
Correct. Well, if that's true, then who's going to replace what they're going to lose?
They have too many.
Okay.
It's got like the Orioles with outfielders or infielders.
Well, right now they're strong at the corners. Do they need middle infield help?
No.
They need a catcher.
No.
Because Contreras didn't have a good year.
That's who they're going to go with, Dad.
But is he more of a DH than a catcher?
No.
Okay.
Not for now. They have too many hitters, Pierre. They need more pitching.
Well, they need a whole bunch of starting pitchers and then relief pitchers at the same time. But the 2 pitchers they signed, especially Lynn, I'm not sure what his future holds.
They're doing 1-year contracts.
He didn't have a good year.
No. But they like both these guys because they're good clubhouse guys. So I don't know if they're going to have a 60-90 record and have a good, beers afterwards type of 2012 Red Sox. There's this mix of talent, youth, and now veteran age, veteranism, if you will. And I don't understand if it's mixing. You have one of the best third basemen ever, Nolan Arenado, next to Mason Wynn, who's your starting shortstop. That's who you're going to trot out there. The only way that some infield clarity happens if Mason Wynn starts in AAA, and Edman can be your shortstop, and Brendan Donovan can be your second baseman, and Nolan Gorman's your DH. He's a 24-year-old DH, and then Goldschmidt at first. But Wynn will eventually come back up, and then the question just who do we trade is now a midseason deadline deal. The outfield, you have Alec Burleson, Tyler O'Neill, Lars Nootbaar, rookie Jordan Walker, and Dylan Carlson. Alec Burleson is probably a true 4th or 5th outfielder here. The 4 others could be starters on other teams. So there is an odd man out, and it's not Lars Nootbaar.
Right. O'Neill had some issues in beginning of the season. Did they rectify themselves? But, they didn't change managers. So, you're saying, is there still a rift between...
Probably. But I think the manager should get fired. I think Ollie should be gone.
But I'm just thinking, is he a trade candidate because of that?
I wouldn't be surprised if O'Neill and Carlson both get moved and they just go with Nootbaar, Walker, and Burleson out there. Or Edman. Tommy Edman actually can play the outfield too if they had to.
And any second baseman.
No, then Brendan Donovan. Both of these are Gold Glove winners, which is funny.
Yeah, but I'm not sure where he's going to be a stellar shortstop.
We'll see with the that's where there's a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
I looked at who wants outfield help and would give up pitching. That's the Cardinals' offer right now. Hey, O'Neill, Carlson, and we need pitching. The Yankees, they would want Carlson.
Yeah.
The Mariners, they could take Carlson or O'Neill. The Braves, slightly, but I don't think O'Neill gets a pitcher because they just got rid of all their pitchers to Chicago and
they emptied the bench.
The Astros, I thought of maybe Tyler O'Neill for JP France, but I obviously really like Dylan Carlson in a package for Alek Manoah, and Alek Manoah can
Yeah.
be their starter, or like a front end starter.
And I'm thinking that would ease some tension in Toronto as well.
Kind of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Carlson's cheap, so if Toronto is going to save some money there. They could get a different free agent.
And he's athletic enough to play in Toronto and do well.
Well, Carlson could play center or right, just like
Yeah.
George Springer. Obviously, a lot of these trade possibilities, if the Yankees, Mariners, Braves, Astros, or Blue Jays sign at a corner outfielder, they're not going to do this trade anymore. But just like the Mets getting calls on Alonso, or the Marlins getting calls on their surplus of starting pitchers, the Cardinals should get some calls on Carlson or O'Neill, and I really think Dylan Carlson is the one that gets traded. I think they run out O'Neill, Nootbaar, and Walker, and if they don't do well, then O'Neill gets traded at the deadline. But he just has no value that much anymore. He's older than Carlson. He's less athletic. He used to hit 30 home runs a year. Now he hits like 12. So I think Carlson has just a slightly more upside.
He's probably a better athlete.
And again, I think more people want someone that can play any corner, any position in the outfield.
Yeah.
And O'Neill can really just play left.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Yeah.
I think Carlson.
So that's
makes
your
the
trade
most.
chip.
Carlson to the Blue Jays and add something that they might want.
I bet it comes true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then you're gonna celebrate.
That'd be fun. I like to call trades, right? That could be a fun podcast.
Yeah.
Dad, is there anything else in St. Louis you want to talk about before we move on to Chicago?
I just think that right now, with a lot of teams moving up, Pirates and Reds are improved. I'm thinking Cardinals don't make those trades you were mentioning.
Really?
They may be another last place team.
Do you think they will make trades? Do you think they will be
I
competitive?
think they will try to make trades, but will they have enough of the guts of a GM to do that? These two guys, have to be saying, "Hey, we're championship caliber players. You got to get a better team for us, or else at the next deadline, these guys might be offered."
Goldschmidt is a free agent after this year.
But good reason to trade them.
I agree,
At
but-
midseason.
But then you kind of look at what is the Cardinals' future. If they don't do well this year,
I know.
there's
And
not much in the pipeline, like
No.
pitching-wise. So I don't-
and their farm system is not that great.
a lot of their farm systems here, right on
Correct.
this page.
Yeah.
Walker and Wynn but
Yeah, I think they're, either they got to make a huge step or they're going to be in the bottom two of that division. Because I think the top of the division is going to be pretty competitive.
I do think the Cubs win this division. My outlook for them already is positive. Hunger, missed the playoffs. We've been over this in the free agent predictions. Dad, the Cubs lost Cody Bellinger, biggest offensive name, depending how you view Shohei Ohtani, but biggest offensive by himself, not a pitcher.
But what a great signing he was. They took a chance and they won.
Marcus Stroman, he opted out. Jamer Candelario and Michael Fulmer are their losses of the offseason. So they have holes. Obviously, first base. I think Patrick Wisdom is not a starter at either position, so I think third base is a hole.
He won't make the opening day roster.
I always thought Patrick Wisdom would be a great Ray. Just let him go down there, figure it out.
You know what? That is a great fit. A little bit of power.
Sure.
Yeah.
They'll make him into a 30 home run, 90 RBI guy.
And for Glasnow right now. No questions asked.
A lot of questions would be asked.
Yeah.
I think their bullpen needs help.
Huge.
I don't-
Biggest weakness they have.
I don't think they have strong starters. I think they have three, and Smiley's weak.
Smiley's probably in the bullpen.
Okay, even better.
Yeah.
So they have Steele, Hendricks, and Tejon. So they need two starters.
Maybe three.
Dad, we kind of did some needs. Talking about your Cubs, maybe give some predictions, trades. We talked about Alonso when we talked about the NL East. Give me more.
Well, right now the big opening is third base,
Okay.
and that could be free agency or trade. First base, free agency or trade. They have many people are saying they got the number one farm system in baseball. They have some young pitchers. Everybody loves young pitchers. They have some young position players with power that they can't use them all because they're, right now their outfield is pretty set. So they're saying, hey, we got some spare outfielders. We have some spare starting pitchers. they have enough ammunition to make a pretty big trade. Right now, that all lines up for, Alonso, some other people. It'd be great for them to get a really number one starting pitcher. If they had an ace, they'd be phenomenal. Excuse me. So I just think that the Cubs' future looks really good, and for once they're going to spend money. I think it's kind of like a perfect storm. Everything is heading in the right direction for them. New manager, new outlook. I think the trades and the signings will happen. They'll be one of the most active teams in the offseason in baseball.
I hope to see them soon. I think I have them for Snell. I have them for Alonso. I have them for Kevin Kiermaier. You have them for Matt Chapman. Definitely
Harrison Bader.
Big names. Yeah, you have a center fielder. So yeah, we have big moves headed to Chicago. Both of us feel like they could or almost should win the Central.
Yeah.
If they don't, they missed a window.
And I think a lot of people will lose their jobs. But I mean, this year, with 15 days out, they had a 90-some% chance of making the playoffs, and they faltered so poorly in the last 2 weeks.
People already lost their job.
Mainly because of the bullpen. So they really need to restructure the bullpen. It would be great to get a starter, probably at least 4 other relief pitchers. They're going to need to spend some money there. There's some people on the market that would be a great fit in Chicago. I just think you're going to see them continuing to add, and they defensively one of the best teams in baseball.
I think we would be remiss if we did not bring up the fact that David Ross still had years on his contract.
1 year.
That's something.
Yeah.
And they had to release him from his contract in order to get Craig Counsell and to make him the most expensive paid manager in baseball history.
$8 million a year, folks.
So if that's not a sign that they're going to go spend other money, I would really hate to hear this story mid-season or at the end of the season next year. It's like, well, if we had more money and we didn't spend $8 million on a manager, we would have, we would have given, Snell $5 million more a year. It's like I hope that's not what they do. Or they could have got an extra reliever or whatever. I think
the last time they did this, what happened?
Well, last time they did what?
They fired a manager with years on his contract, hired Joe Madden.
2016.
The rest is history.
I don't think the Cubs. I mean, they would have to. A lot of things would click, but I think they're going to build for a really good future. I don't know if they could even overcome the Dodgers, or the Braves, or the Phillies, but they have to overcome the Central first.
Correct. Yeah, one step at a time. I think they get to the playoffs. That'll be, get that playoff atmosphere in Chicago. City will go nuts.
And definitely not Southside.
And then from there, they're on their way, but they're going to be an exciting team. And they got some kids in the minors with big-time power and athleticism. It's going to be a fun team. They know what they're doing, Wrigley. They're starting to bring in power hitters. They know that they need to score runs. And you know what? It's an exciting team, and they're relatively young.
Let's move on to the Pirates. Pirates are kind of like a rinse and repeat offseason almost. And I'll get into that more. But they lost Andrew McCutchen.
Nicely phrased, by the way.
I think it's a positive thing. I'll get to that in a second. Vince Velasquez, Jarlin Garcia, and Will Crow, I think, got outright released. And Miguel Andujar also got non-tenors. Really, the only loss was McCutchen, and they've already talked to him about re-signing him. Dad, what would the Pirates need to do? And obviously, I'm happy to.
Pitching, kind of got worn out.
Yeah.
I think they need starters and relievers. First base is a little bit of a hole, and I'm thinking they probably could use an outfielder. Their number one draft choice should come around and help them, with some power.
Dylan, right?
Yes. From LSU. And he should come around maybe even this year to give him some power. And that would help tremendously. I just think they lack power, and the corner positions would be that. And I think their pitching just wore out. They really started well, and then they're so young they just couldn't finish. Mm-hmm. But they have some talent.
They do. My rinse and repeat is when they were 2024 or 2023, they had a really good first 30, 40 days.
Yeah.
They're in first place.
Yeah.
And then O'Neal Cruz got injured. And now they get hopefully a full year of O'Neal Cruz, no freak injuries. They'll have Ke'Bryan Hayes, Gold Glover, perennial Gold Glover at this point, at the hot corner. They inked Reynolds to an extension. Jack Sawinski seems to be put. They like Connor Joe a whole lot. They like Ji-Hwan Bae. They have their Henry Davis as sort of like a catcher right fielder right now, and then Rodriguez is also a prospect catcher. They made a good trade to get Bailey Falter from the Phillies. I think that Bailey getting out of the pressure of Philly could actually really succeed in Pittsburgh. There's rumors that they could be a sleeper for Tyler Glasnow, a reunion, because they have the depth to get Glasnow now.
They do have a good farm system.
They have one of the best closers in baseball. So I really think it's just re-sign McCutchen, basically restart 2023, and see if the outcomes are a little different with some new kids on the block.
Going through a year.
But
Yeah.
And then if they're competitive, they might add at the deadline. They may hover around 500.
Did you read that the shortstop threw over 90 to first base?
Of course I did. Because
Think about that for a minute.
baseball's kind of interesting because O'Neal Cruz was the headline until he got hurt. Like, he was the headline. And then 2 weeks after he got sidelined, Ellie De La Cruz comes up. And then gets completely that same headline. Same division, same big shortstops. And it's just very interesting to see how those guys will be, in theory, seeing each other for 6 years straight if all goes well.
Yeah. And O'Neal's 6'7", correct?
O'Neal's the biggest shortstop in baseball.
Yeah.
De La Cruz is, I think, 6'5", but faster.
Yeah. And both phenomenal arms. And range.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some great shortstops in that division.
Both have a promising future, but I think when Cruz is good, I think he's better than Ellie De La Cruz. De La Cruz ended up with like a 202 batting average, so he can hit the ball, but needs for average.
And they figured him out as the season went on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, Pittsburgh has some athletes. Mm-hmm. So when you have that, all you need is some pitching and kind of like move up. I think they don't be taken lightly.
I think you could see I think we mentioned some of those back end top 50 free agents that I think I put Jacob Junis as my pick, but basically not a sexy name. They got Rich Hill last year, kind of like those players that could do a 1 or 2 year deal, but it'll be sneaky good. They'll have like a 3.3 ERA, and you're like, what the hell who's behind Mitch Keller again? Why did they win 3 straight?
And he was a decent pitcher.
He was.
Yeah.
He was. He had, I think, a Cy Young vote.
Yeah, but I mean, he was their ace.
Yeah.
I think we saw him pitch in Baltimore. He did a hell of a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dad, I have the Brewers shirt on. I wore specifically 3 shirts, as you'll see in the other one, about like what's going on with this franchise. I wore the Mets in the last one. Milwaukee, Dad.
They're in trouble.
So they have so many
holes to fill.
Holes to fill, and so many just people exiting. Brendan Woodruff. They decided to non-tender him.
Yeah.
Despite.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. What a pickup.
Mm-hmm.
You mean you sign him, he might come back, mid-year if everything goes well, but if not, definitely 25. But what a pitcher to take a chance on.
They weren't willing to pay him. They're a cheap organization.
Yes, that's apparent.
As Corbin Burns has pointed out. They cut Rowdy Tellez, despite really liking him and his dogs. Josh Donaldson, that was a smart, don't bring him back. Jesse Winker's gone. Remember his kind of like prominence, and now he's out of baseball. Not out of baseball, but just out of prominence.
Yeah, he was very good for a while.
Carlos Santana, Victor Carantini, Julio Teheran, Abraham Toro, Wade Miley, Andrew Chafin, Justin Wilson, Eric Lauer, and Brian Anderson. I think 12 or 13 names there.
That's a lot of losses.
Holes at third, holes at DH. I would say a hole at first, I would say a hole at second, and I would say a hole at right field.
Don't forget starting pitching.
Hole in pitching.
Yeah.
Dad, are they going to try to build, or are they demolishing and tearing it down?
From what I have read, they're willing to tear it down for financial reasons. And I think for the most part, they may trade their super pieces they build and then, come back 2 or 3 years from now. I'm thinking the GM got out, end up with the Mets.
Stearns.
Yeah. And he was, let's say, very good GM. He really built this team and did a nice job of trading and drafting. And I think that Milwaukee's future is bleak. They might be down with St. Louis, hoping to build for the future. But right now, they're not a contender in my eyes.
I think Yelich has to stay with his contract. I think Devin Williams gets moved at the deadline, but not the offseason. But Willie Adames and Corbin Burns get moved this offseason.
Yeah. Burns for sure.
I've mentioned Burns makes sense for Baltimore.
It would be a great fit. What an ace.
Yes. I even floated out like Connor Norby if they need a good second baseman. I don't know if the Orioles pull that punch. But then again, they have Jordan Westbrook. So it's kind of like
I was about to say that.
Maybe you trade Norby. There's going to be too many people, too many mouths to feed in Baltimore, and not enough spaces. So you got to move them. And then I don't know, Norby and Mateo for Burns. I don't know if that's enough, but
You
like
might have thrown in something else. Milwaukee's going to need pitching, so they might have to get one of the young pitchers.
okay, like I mean, do it. Like, do you want to win or not? Like,
but Milwaukee has such a nice run, and then all of a sudden, they never did well in the playoffs. But I'm telling you, I think they reached their pinnacle, and you can see them kind of like, slowly taking a back seat.
they could also trade if they're trading Adames and getting infielders from the Orioles. They could trade Adames for pitching. Like again, Adames could go to Miami, and then boom, there's your pitching.
Yeah.
So
all those are great possibilities. And let's face it, Milwaukee's a small market team. Is it that is part of the financial problem, or is it just they don't allocate their funds properly? Something's amiss. So I haven't figured out why, but Council was quick to get out of town and make a quick deal to somebody who's going to pay him well and everything. Same thing to GM. GM kind of like took a step back so he could transfer out, ended up in New York. There's something there that most people don't know about in the front office.
it could be the same reason Jeter left Miami. They talked about here's the 5-year plan of our organization.
Yeah.
They went, I don't like that, and they're out.
Yeah, you're right.
So it could be very much we're gonna rebuild or whatever it might be, and I would hate to see. I mean, it feels very much like the AL East of this year. If the Brewers and Cardinals are 4-5, it's like, what's happening?
Yeah, it's wide open in the Central Division, and whoever's the most aggressive is going to win.
Well, let's see. You think the Reds are going to be aggressive, Dad?
I did.
Every pitcher to the Reds, according to my dad.
They're on record saying they need 3 pitchers. They're an exciting team. I don't know if you watched them this year, Patrick, but they have some athletes, and they love to run, and they're aggressive, and they have some real key athletes at shortstop and center field. Up the middle, they're very strong, and I just think that they have a nice future. They ended up with a nice record, 82-80. That was in the playoff hunt as well. I think they're right there, second or first place in the Central.
Being an athletic team means a lot of your players can play multiple positions, which means your offseason outlook's kind of hard. But let me tell you who they lost. Joey Votto. Number one.
Huge loss.
Cornerstone. I know he was injured to start the year, but when he came back, that's really when they got good. I know it wasn't because of Votto's playing, but it was because of his leadership. And now your team leader is Jonathan India, who you've already thought about trading. So just to keep that in mind, that the mood, the feng shui might be off next year if those 2 people aren't back on the team. Justin Dunn, Ben Lively, Vladimir Gutierrez, Harrison Bader, remember he joined the team at the end, Luke Molly, Kirk Casale, they rhyme, Buck Farmer, Nick Senzel, they non-tendered him, Reaver San Martin, Derek Law, Will Myers, Hunter Renfroe, all losses. A lot of those were midseason pickups, but
they were active. They were very active last year.
And they will be this year. They will, if they're good again, they'll add pieces at the deadline. But what will they add in the offseason?
Well, pitching, first base, huge hole there. And I'm thinking depth pieces because they seem to do well. But again, with the youth players, I think they get some veterans in there to mix with the young guys to teach them how to win. But first base is a huge hole, and starting pitching. My 2 observations.
I think they're going to go with Spencer Steer at first base. I think it's going to be pitching as well. They need a veteran, an innings eater. I had 3. One of these is not a veteran, but Miami is always going to be, anytime I hear pitching, I'll think Miami. Trevor Rogers for Jonathan India. If Kansas City wants a second baseman, that's controllable. They can play with Bobby Witt, Jordan Lyles, and then Boston for Nick Pivetta or Tanner Houck. Again, I think Jordan Lyles is the most seasoned veteran there, but I don't think he's the best option.
He's an inning eater.
But I also don't know how much value India has anymore. He had a pretty just okay season.
Well, if he can bring...
Kyle Lewis is out of baseball, and he's a Rookie of the Year winner, too. So it doesn't always mean,
you got to continue to improve, or else the league will figure out. Yeah.
Dad, that is the NL Central. Is there anything you want to add about these 5 teams before we finish out the podcast day?
Go Cubs, go.
With the... Hey, Chicago. Again, the NL Central will be much more entertaining to watch than the AL Central with the trades of the Brewers and the Cardinals. the addition of the Cubs and the Reds, and we'll see what the Pirates do. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, please. I don't know how many times I've said that today. I feel like a broken record. All of our social media stuff will be in the description below. And yeah, hope you are enjoying your holiday break, because hopefully I'll have these uploaded around the end of the weekend.
Hope you got a bargain today.
Yeah, happy Black Friday or Cyber Monday whenever you're seeing this.
Yeah.